All right, what's up, VIBE Edu community? We are back as Kim Gameroz, Mitch Weathers, TJ Vari, myself, Joshua Stamper are back once again, and it's been a little while. I missed you guys. It's great to see you. Yeah. And we're going to be talking about a new series as we're starting off episode 1 of the series, which is going to be over student behavior. And this is something that we've teased out for a little while. I know it's all something that we're extremely passionate about and something that is needed, especially as we're getting this time of school year where the honeymoon period is over. And I know teachers have reached out to us in various different ways to let us know that they're potentially struggling in certain areas. So we thought today we might talk about stories of some of the crazy and maybe worse behaviors we've seen, either on the campus or in our classrooms, and then also maybe where some trouble spots may lie. That we've seen also. So who wants to kick us off with a story? You're all smiling.
I think it should be the take action guy.
Oh, come on.
TJ Vari.
The UDL take action guy.
So is this TJ as a youngster or TJ as a teacher?
Well, no, I think just in my time, I would say the worst thing that happens in schools is fighting. Whether it's on the bus, in the schoolyard, recess, in the classroom, in the lunchroom, I could never stand that. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that I can tolerate from kids. Like, I wasn't the most well-behaved kid. I don't really even want to tell a bunch of stories about that, but because I did get, suspended from school and all of the things. But fighting, I just hated it as a school leader. Like, the violent act of two kids going at it with one another, and also just the disruptive nature of that in schools. I just think that if there was one thing I could just wave a magic wand and have kids not do in school ever again, it's fighting. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It breaks my heart, actually. It's like, the aggression like that we resort in that. I think, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I have a story that literally changed the way I thought about teaching. It was like early on. I was in a first grade classroom. I was taking over for a teacher who, like on a leave. And I was like, I don't want to teach first grade. Like, that was like in my brain. Like, they're too little for me. Right. I still was teaching dance at night from like 3 until 9. And I was like, I can't teach little people all day long and then teach everybody else like at night too. And so I went in thinking, well, it's fine. It's just teaching. It's just teaching. Kim, you could teach. Like, you could teach. And I remember this kiddo, the cutest thing in the entire world, literally looks like a little like leprechaun, like jumping around, like bouncing like everywhere here and there. And I was like, I just love you. I'm going to eat you up. Found out this child was diagnosed with autism. And I was like, okay, like, Kim, you got this. You can do this. No big deal. You can work your magic. And this kid was really good friends with like cute little group, girls and boys. And I was like, watching them out on the playground together. But then sometimes something would happen. It was like a little switch that went off in this child's brain. And I was like, this cute little leprechaun kind of became like a gremlin. Like, you can think of like Gremlins, the movie, where I was like, oh boy, what is happening here? And I remember one time I could like see in this kid's brain, like something was not right. And it was like, I'm seeing red. And they jumped on top of the desk and literally, like a gazelle, went from desk to desk to desk, jumping, literally jumping, and then into my book nook that I had, super cute with like a little rug, chairs, bean bags, like all the things, jumped into the book nook, jumped on top of their friend and bit the friend. Bit him, bit the friend. And I was like, what is going on in here? And it was in that moment, I'll never forget it. After it happened, I went racing, like at the end of the day, racing to the principal, and I was bawling. And I was like, I don't know what to do. How could I have avoided that? What do I do? And I remember she looked at me and she was like, it's going to be okay. tomorrow you're going to go back in there and it's going to be fine. And I was like, oh my God, this is real life. And I think that was a light bulb moment for me where I was like, okay, it's not just teaching. Like, they're not just going to do what you want them to do, Kim. Like, you really have to figure out what's going on in their brains. And that, honestly, that was before like anything. Yeah, it was just the very, very beginning. That was like a holy moly sort of a moment for me. And now I'm like, oh yeah, I got this. Let me help you, teachers. Come here, come here. We got biting going on. Okay, yeah, I got you. Like, it's just so crazy. But that was a big one for me in the beginning.
I think it's interesting too for teachers that like we've got, and I think we should draw a line here eventually in the show. I mean, we're going to talk about bad behaviors, but draw a line between things that are just unpreventable. Like that wasn't your fault as a teacher. And then things that we need to prevent, like that are within our sphere of control. And maybe we're making things worse or we're not doing things to prevent that behavior. But in that case, like, what are you going to do? You know?
Still have a game plan, right? That's the teacher training and support. But I think that's absolutely, when we look at behavior, and Josh could just speak for the rest of this episode, that behavior really is that it's a manifestation of a young person or an old person being dysregulated in some way.
Yeah.
It's often, most of the time, a nervous system thing going on. Not always, but to see that as like you can't look at behavior through like a punitive lens. It's kind of, we have to go into it with curiosity. Now, when kids are biting other kids, or, I remember, I don't remember this, but my mom, I transferred schools in kindergarten. And my mom, who taught second grade most of her career, was prior to her teaching. She said she visited my kinder classroom and there was like 5 kids running around on top of the desks with the teacher in there. And in that case, you probably go, I'm not sure the teacher knows what they're doing, or they need some serious support. And my mom wasn't in that role. So she literally transferred schools because I was not a very strong student. She's like, my kid is never going to make it here, right? He can't spell, he can't read, he can't do math, he's dyslexic, like, all this stuff. So I think you're right. There's fear of influence. Like, how am I? Because we've all been in classrooms where it's the teacher is exacerbating issues that are going to be in every classroom. They just are, because it's what we do is a messy human to human endeavor at the end of the day. Right. And so if that being intentional and even artful about the environment so that it leads to de-escalation, some of those behaviors, I think is important. Now, I'm with you on the fighting, except one time, TJ, there was this girl, my first year teaching, this kid was just same thing, like, but a big kid, kind of hellion, Ken, like what you just shared. But he'd be back, like trying to get kids to gamble with him in the corner. He had like dice, and he was just always I forgot we're recording. I almost just swore. He just was just a pain all the time, right? And he went out, I think he went up and stole this girl's food or something, and she lost it. And he was like, what are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do? And she's like, just give me my food back. And he's like, gives her food back, and he's talking, he's like, hit me. And I'm like, whoa. And she's like, what are you talking about? Just give me it. He's like, go ahead, hit me. And he just kept provoking this girl until she just punched him in the face hard, like a solid connection. And I was like, well, I didn't know what I was doing. Literally first year teacher with the same kind of thing. I'm like, well, you asked her to hit you. I don't think she's in trouble. Like, So anyway, I digress. I'm with you on the fighting thing. Always just as a high school teacher.
Yeah.
I my second school where I spent most of my career, I happened to be at the corner where all like planned fights would be. Like, they would like at this time during this passing period, and we had quite a bit of gang issues. Yep. And it was always right outside my classroom. And like, it just, my whole disposition the rest of the day, it just didn't sit well. It was sad to see young people that dysregulated, So
in school, like especially in school,
Right.
like
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it still has no place.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it makes sense as to the dysregulation. You know, when you put that many people together and then you add other components to it like social media and clout and acceptance, and again, like what Mitch was talking about, right? There's obviously something underneath, and it could be something in regards to the brain, but it also might be a basic need that's being unmet. And a lot of times too, and similar to what Mitch was just talking about with gangs, like when I was a dean of students, I was in Dallas, and there was a huge gang population in that area. And, you know, we're talking about worst behaviors and chaos. Like the one time that was the most chaotic, I counted 26 officers on our campus over a gang fight, and having to rifle through kids to determine who got jumped and who was a part of the fight and who needed to be suspended and who needed to go with the police officers to get their photo taken to now be in that gang listing for the city. And, you know, parents coming up and students and, you know, putting their stuff on Snapchat and all this other stuff. Right. So I'm talking about like the whole campus and disruption of the educational environment. That day was a hot mess. And, you know, in this episode, I mean, I don't think it really is something that most people can even identify with. Like that's not a typical experience, right? But to your point, TJ, of like how sad things are, you know, a kid getting bullied and bringing a knife to school and pulling it out in the common area with a kid that was bullying him and telling him he's going to cut him if he does it again. Well, that kid got arrested, right? Because that knife was over 8 inches long. And so that now is something where the police have to be involved. And so as the handcuffs are being put on a 6th grader, he's asking, is this going to hurt? Like that's heartbreaking as tears are going down his face, and having to call his parents on that one. Or, you know, the child that is getting expelled because they have a butterfly knife to protect themselves because their father is actually asking that person, that child, to sell marijuana after school, and they need to be safe on the streets. And so that's protection. But we don't think about that. It's based on the student code of conduct, and what's in that says if you have a butterfly knife, you now no longer are allowed to be in our district, you know, things like that. So, you know, heartbreaking. I can think of 1,000 stories of consequences that were provided to a child where there were so many other external things going on that were a part of that behavior and the decision that that child made. And then you start to think on the other end, like, how are we helping this kid? Because what it seems like is we're just pushing them away and not giving them the things that they need, which is typically a basic need.
Yeah, if I'm carrying all of that and I show up to school and I don't feel safe in that space, then those behaviors are going to manifest. And this all comes back to, I think, young people being known, like really known and cared for on campus. And I don't care if you're a 2nd grader or, you know, like it is in a secondary school, you know, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 young people in one place. Those kids have to be known. My daughter's school, I think it's 2,700 kids, over 700 in the freshman class. And the 9th grade success kind of counselor, she's not a guidance advisor, they have a specific person, knew every one of those kids by name. Wow. And made a point to it. And I was blown away walking around with my daughter, and she knew her. I'm like, how do you know my daughter? I mean, that's a lot of kids, but if you're not known, you could, you know, in the ideal sense, if we could create learning environments that were safe havens from all of the bullshit that I deal with outside of school, if I'm that kid, those things are outside of a kid's control oftentimes. But think of the classroom, you know, if you're a teacher, like that's your sphere, or if you're a school leader, like, could we create, I think ideally, spaces where it's like, I can't wait to get to school because I feel safe there. For those kids that are navigating that chaos outside of school, that's monumental.
Yeah, recently interviewed Principal Kafele. He's been on our Focus Ed podcast, and he said something really profound, which was that the ideals of the school don't have to be the same as the ideals of the community, that the school doesn't have to represent the behavior of the community, that it can be its own safe haven. And I think that's really important for school leaders and teachers to think about how you can build that community inside the school, which is vastly different. What Josh was saying, like maybe gangs in the community, but vastly different. So that when kids come to the school, they don't necessarily represent the person who they are outside of the school. They're just they represent, now I'm a school kid. I'm a learner here within the community. I think that struck me as very insightful, but it also a mental shift for people who want to maybe blame an environment outside of the school for what we're experiencing inside the school. So, yeah.
It's tricky though. My school, Josh, we experienced like gang riot scenarios multiple times. Yep. And that's a strong force that kids are navigating that come to school to leave that at the door. That's tricky.
It's an identity shift. It's a code shift. It's a total it can be done though. You've seen
it can be done.
You've been to schools that are in communities that are suffering, but inside the school, everybody has a different code of conduct. And I mean a personal code of conduct, values that come from the school leader and the teachers. Mm-hmm. And I also just say, to the point that you were making earlier, Josh, zero tolerance and like really strict codes of conduct and like arresting kids and putting things on kids' records. And none of that works.
No.
None of that works. And so I think flexibility in the way we think about behavior is also really important. We could probably do a whole episode on that, but like just because a kid does something does not mean that kid is that something. We need to change the behavior, not just label it.
Well, why did the kids go toward gangs? Right? I mean, there's a whole psychology behind that, as far as the acceptance and the bond that they have with each other, like a family, because of the families that they come from. Right. And there's obviously something lacking that they're searching for that isn't being provided by anywhere else in society. So for us, it was a teach piece because our teachers labeled the students as bad kids or fill in the blank as to what that title is and how you view them. But as far as leadership goes, like we had to paint the picture differently. And one-on-one, these kids were beautiful. They were smart. They had great ambitions. They were compassionate. They had more empathy sometimes than the teachers did toward them. And so, just trying to let other folks know, like, just because they're a part of this doesn't mean that that's who they are. That's just where they're at this point in their life, right? That doesn't mean that it can't be changed. So for us, it was just trying to take out the assumptions, the biases, the labels, all those things, to strip it down to say, okay, again, what's those basic needs? Like the kids that are coming in, do they have food? Do they have water? How do we know that? Like putting some things in place. So like classroom check-ins. Kim, I know you talk about this too with your community, like getting a baseline. Where are they at? So then as a school providing those things, and like once the state thankfully like provided free breakfast for everyone, well, guess what? Our attendance started to go up. Why? Because they were guaranteed 2 meals a day. In addition to the fact that hopefully as our staff was changing their mindset, that they actually had a safe space, that they were building healthy relationships with their kids. So now I'm not only getting food, but I'm also getting acceptance. I'm also getting love. I'm getting compassion, in addition to the fact that I'm getting a safe environment. So once you start putting those things in, now we start to see kids never absent, on our school. And instead, before, where they were rather just go out into the community or at the apartment complexes and then getting other people to influence them to start slinging drugs or, joining gangs and doing all these other crazy things that they were doing in the neighborhood. So again, to your point, TJ, is once you start building that community at school that is different than what they're seeing outside of school, well, now the kids are running into the building and they're staying there. They're not going anywhere.
But it's all predicated on them being known. I mean, this is true of almost every interaction in life, right? If someone's frustrating you, if you get a chance to talk to them and understand why they're doing what they do, and you're like, oh, just de-escalates everything, right? Having mechanisms in place to really know, young people just have to be known, like, and know that they're known and cared for. And Deborah Meyer has I quote her a couple times in my first book, because she states that, you know, there's high schools, secondary schools, where a young person goes all 4 years and is never actually known by an adult. It's like, that just can't happen, you know? We have to have these mechanisms in place for student feedback. I had a kid that was tardy over and over, and I just constantly tardy, and tardies for whatever reason were the one thing that just festered with me, you know? It's like, get here, you know, I don't know why. Everything else, I was pretty chill. And then I have a mechanism in place with you know, our closing routine every day is you're writing to me. It's not an exit ticket. I'll collect it at the end of the week. We can get into all that some other time, but I promised them that I would write anything they write, I would read and I'd comment back. And once students see that I'm reading and commenting, and I can check in with them, I can talk, I'm getting to know them. It's private one-on-one conversation. I've like boatloads of stories from me and other teachers now that use that same routine, where a kid will use that as the safe mechanism, the pathway to either reach out for help or to explain. And this student explained that his family was affiliated with one gang, and the way to get to school, the shortest route, was through another neighborhood with a different gang affiliation. And even though that he was not an active gang member, he's part of that family. So he had to take 3 city buses to get to school. And here I am, first period teacher, riding him because he's 5 minutes late. Instead, I should have been celebrating his effort. Like, holy cow, that's incredible. Like, open arms. Like, I'm so glad you're here. And once I knew I could do that, it's like, you're not disrupting anything. Like, you just went through this Herculean task just to get here because you want to be here and you care about it. And no one else in this room had to do that. And I'm the guy sitting up here giving you a hard time because you're tardy. Like, but unless that young person had the opportunity to be known, I would have never known, you know?
Well, think about the opposite is true. First off, listeners should be taking away a ton from what Mitch just said in terms of strategy. And I know Kim teased me before the show started about take action, but like,
it is in your name, TJ.
Yeah, well, I changed my name.
What's mine again, Kim? I'm not changing my name. Go ahead. Sorry, TJ. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think like that's a strategy. The writing part is a strategy. And then the opposite, what I was about to say is, and I'm proud of myself for remembering what I was about to say. See, you guys.
Nice.
Now I forget. So
yeah, you lost it. It's gone.
Now the strategy part, the opposite part is when we say to kids, you know, you're always late or something. It's like, well, you don't know what it takes for me to get here. And if I have to put up with you're always late and some attitude, I'm just not coming. And I got to that point in high school where I was like, is it even worth it to go in there? Like, I'm going to get yelled at right away. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not even going to be in there 5 minutes before somebody's going to be telling me I was late and wrong in the parking lot. So it's tough. Joe and I do this thing where we go to schools. We have the strategies lined up, but we're going to teach a strategy. But before we do this dot activity. You probably have heard of this, where we call the school ahead of time and we say, we want white paper all around the library with every name of every kid in the school. And then we give it to teachers dots, and they're color coded. And one dot is this kid has strong relationships with teachers. Yep. One dot is this kid has strong relationships with peers, positive. And the third dot is this kid has strong relationship with the school. And we define that for people. Like, the school is like, they would still wear their middle school sweatshirt in high school. Like, that's the type of school. And we did this activity. We do this activity, and the dots go up, and then we look at the kids who have lots of dots and the kids who don't have lots of dots, and we analyze that, and then we talk about strategy. But part of the story is we did this one time at this middle school, and they did the dot activity, and everybody sat back down, and we were getting ready to talk. An assistant principal stood up and said, I want everybody to notice that the big brawl we had on Friday with like these 7 girls who got into this brawl in the parking lot, none of them have dots.
Mm.
Not a single dot.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. Like, it's just that type of, like, I don't know what to call it, that type of epiphany about how the belonging part really matters. And so where's the 32 kids or whatever, 25 kids you have in your classroom right now? Like, let's get to really know those kids.
And how do you do that if it's 32 times 5?
It's hard.
How do you
I mean,
do
I'm
that
not
20 and you're with them all day? Yeah, I mean, it's you, but that's you have to have that feedback loop, that mechanism somehow, because you just don't have time to sit down one-on-one with kids each day. It's just not a reality, right? Certainly in the secondary level. But I had a teacher write in when I was writing, like in process, writing book 1, and this just shows how old I'm getting, but she is now a teacher and wanted to bring organized binder to her classroom, right? And the reason she did, there was a couple reasons. She's like, I looked back once I was in the classroom and realized, oh, she went to a school. She wasn't my kid, but she went to a school that used these strategies, right? And she looked back as an adult, as a teacher now, like, oh, this is where I actually learned how to keep a calendar and organize myself. And I set goals in that organized binder and all this stuff. And she realized I need to bring this to my kids. But most importantly, she had transferred to a school. And this was the story she wrote in to tell me. And her parents had got a divorce. Her mom, something happened where she had to go live with her grandmother in a different district. So already dealing with like trauma and life change and all this stuff, right? But then she switches high schools at like a sophomore year. And she said, I remember walking onto this campus. I didn't know anybody, no kids, didn't know any of the teachers. But in short order, she said, most of my teachers had this, they were using organized binder. They had this concluding routine. And I would write to them like they asked, and they would write back. And it was that connection to the adults on campus that like got her through this season of life, because the people really got to know her and cared about her. And she felt connected to a campus, even though she didn't know anybody for quite a while. So it's got to be part of, and it can't be just an add-on. It's got to be part of the structure of the day.
The routine.
It has to be. And it has to be so ingrained that it's kind of like, hey, this is how we do this. So I'm going to hold you accountable for doing it because it's so important. I used to hold this, we call it the weekly lifeline, but that's where the concluding and beginning routine is. And I would tell my kids, like, outside of like a really big assignment or something I need to dive into, this is all I grade over the weekend, because I just want to hear from you. I just want to hear what's going on with you, how this is landing, because then I can show up on Monday, right? And it's like having a pulse on every kid in the room, right? So I agree with that strategy. Yeah.
I just keep on thinking about elementary kids and elementary teachers, and I'm putting myself, right, as you're talking, I'm putting myself into their classrooms, and what they're dealing with is not this. It's with the kids rolling on the carpet or like nose diving and sliding, right? It's also kids like wandering around, using the hand sanitizer and like watching it drip down like from their fingertips. I mean, that's the reality. Rolling lint, like picking the floor, the carpet and rolling lint. But it's also tearing down the classroom, like tearing it apart, like monkeys, like literally crawling on top of things and like ripping it apart. I remember a classroom recently in the past couple of years, a teacher dealing with all of that stuff in her classroom. It was a kindergarten classroom. And she was like, help me. Yeah. And I mean, it was a lot. And we took this, what I would say, red flag. That was the red flag, like literally just like owning the room. And I was like, I will take over. You're going to watch me. Okay. You're going to listen to how I de-escalate everybody, right? Listen to the tone of my voice, listen to my words, get out a piece of paper quickly, right? And I remember this kid, you guys, was like, oh, fresh meat. right? Like that's literally what it was. You could feel that. And I was like, I got this. Like, I got this.
Yeah.
And kid, you guys would have died. Like the dancer in me for sure came out. I was like literally dancing around the room because this kid was like coming up to me. But I, again, with all of my tools, avoiding eye contact, super slow, neutral tone. But this kid, I swear to you guys, if I had gone on for a second longer to like talk to the kids and then get them off and like ready to do whatever it was they were doing, that kid would have for sure spit in my face. Like I could feel it coming within this kid. I knew. And that's the type of stuff that our elementary teachers that are listening are like, help me, right? Like help me. But it's also a huge population of kids with autism also that is throwing your general education teachers for a loop. And they're saying things like, I've never been trained in any of this. I don't understand their brains. I don't know how to help their brains. And there's also this misconception of like, I do know it all and this kid can whatever. And there are so many teachers out there that are like, I don't know if they're in denial or what it is, but like you said, you have to get to know the kid, but you got to get to know their brain. You really need to know what's going on in their brain. And it can lead to, if you, again, put your assumptions on this kid, like this kid can do it. And I know that they can. And now I'm going to punish them because they didn't, whatever it is, right? There is so much shame, long lasting shame that comes with that. And I don't know. As you guys are talking, I literally have like all of these like flashbacks of kids and teachers and schools and districts. And it does break your heart. It really does. Like as you guys are talking, it freaking breaks your heart. And if you cannot take the time to figure this stuff out and take action and be consistent and be intentional, right, through all of this, then chaos will ensue. That is just the reality. So yeah, I don't know.
I'm glad you said that, Kim, because it's definitely when we talk about behavior, we have to distinguish primary from secondary and how different. I mean, it's different in every way. And I've learned so much in writing this second book with TJ and I's friend and colleague, Sarah Oberly, that she's first grade her whole career. And you just you just don't, unless you've spent time in that space, man, hats off. Because, in some ways, and we know, like telling a kid to calm down doesn't necessarily, but people do
don't
it.
do that.
and kind of at the, at secondary level, there's kind of a different logic in the brain. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's different. Like with a kindergarten kid that bounced all around and then bit his friend, not even his enemy. You're like, there's no logic in that. Like, I can't like logic my way through this where, you know what I mean? Like it's a little bit different, but what is happening in the mastery teaching that goes on in the primary level, like true mastery it's just unbelievable. Like, and it's just such a crazy space. Like Sarah shared this thing. She was replying to a tweet. Someone, it was a compliment or something. I forget. It was about this book we're working on. And they started bantering as primary teachers, right? And one of the things Sarah said, and I'm going to watch your face on this, Kim. She said, avoid the wet shoelaces. And I was like, what? See, look at Josh and TJ.
That sounds like, horrible.
You can. I was thinking wet shoelaces, and so I replied to the Twitter chain or whatever you call it, and said, I was just like, wet shoelaces ? And Sarah replied that it's when a young kid comes to you and asks you to tie their shoes, and their shoelaces are wet, and you don't know why.
Yeah.
I was like,
I'm just thinking of my 3-year-old. That's why
in my life, personally or professionally, I've never had someone ask me to tie their shoes and they're all wet
because they jumped in a puddle.
Like Sarah,
come over to the Stamper household, Mitch. Well,
what's that?
I said, come over to the Stamper household. Well,
I mean,
all these
maybe
experiences.
it's a little less likely. I don't know, but
I love that TJ goes, because they stepped in a puddle. I'm
That's
like,
what I thought. I'm like, did they walk through wet grass on their way into the school? I mean,
come on.
it just never comes up. That's what I'm saying. Like, what? She sent me a video of the process, because we talk a lot about the primary space with executive functions and cognitive load and the environment and your strategies and being intentional. Sarah sent this video to me, private, just as a joke. And she was showing everybody how to put your chair up at the end of the day.
Yes.
And it was like 5 minutes long because their book bag, their chair, they have a bag that has not like a backpack, but thing that goes on the back of the chair. I guess you'd call it a book. It's like your supplies. Mm-hmm. So she had to start by explaining how you take that off the chair, mm-hmm. and the tone of her voice, the cadence of her voice. And I was sitting here going, that's exhausting.
Nah.
Where I would be like, at the end of class, you put your binders back here. Got it? Done. This took 5 minutes. And first she demoed it, and then she put it back, and then she let them try to remove the bag from the back of the chair. And she watched, and she commented, and she corrected, and she complimented kids. And then the next thing was like, okay, and now I'm going to show you. And there was like 5 questions. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And you've been doing this for 6 hours. Everything you do has to be that intentional, right, Kim? Like everything.
Okay.
I'm so enamored by primary teachers. Like, holy cow.
You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. Okay. And this is a great takeaway. I feel like now I'm the action person. Like I want people to do this like tomorrow when you're with your students, especially if you're primary. When you're talking about cognitive load and you're talking about little people, they literally can hang on to 2 directions, and that's it. And the direction is not you're going to get up and come over to the carpet, because what you really mean is you want them to stand up. You want them to push in their chair. You want them to think about where they're going to sit. You want them to sit down. And if you had materials that you want them to bring, that's all of those things too. So really a little person is only like a stand up and push in your chair. Like that's all we're at. We can't even get down to the carpet when really that's what you wanted them to do. So what you do is you have them do a mental dress rehearsal first. So if I'm Sarah, right, I'm going to talk about it. We're going to like, maybe I'm going to demo it. You're going to listen to my tone and everything. And then I don't even want them to touch the bag yet. I want them to act it out. So point to the bag. Okay, then we're going to pick up the bag. No. Don't touch the bag. We're only using our hands. Pick up the bag. And then we're going to do this, like whatever she wanted them to do, right? And then we're going to take our chair, grab the chair. And remember, you hold it close to your heart. If you hold it over here, so everybody hold it here. Like all of those things, right?
That's what she was doing, how you hold the chair.
Yes.
And then when you tip it up this way, and the kids are like,
yes.
Watching, and you're just going, this is.
If you have them act it out, right? It literally is this mental dress rehearsal in their brains. And then you have them practice it. Okay. Now that is for every single transition. That's something that we do in our framework that we teach teachers is you need to do a mental dress rehearsal. You need to have them visualize what they're going to do. And ready for this? You attach the emotion to it at the end. So they have their chairs moving. They have to like move around the classroom. It could feel chaotic. And what you tell them is, and guess what? At the very end, we're going to feel calm, or we're going to feel accomplished, or we're going to feel whatever it is, like fill in the blank. And that transforms a classroom. And it really does support the executive functioning skills of all kids. But it's interesting because even like, again, dancer brain, what did we used to do in dance? We would be like, our teacher would choreograph a routine. Okay. It's like a 3-minute dance, let's just say, and you got to perform it a million gazillion times. Well, you're exhausted after an hour of doing that routine over and over and over again during practice before a competition or whatever. So what do? You sit down, you play the music, and you act it out with your body. It's the exact same thing. You can feel the emotion also attached to it too. And if you've got a great director or teacher or whoever, they're also walking you through it, and you're using your mouth and you're counting and you're doing all these things. That's what we're doing, but in a classroom setting. And I'm telling you, it changes everything. That's action.
That's the routine. Right?
Yes.
This is how we do things.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is really, really good instruction, let's say, or routines, the environment in primary, is so many takeaways for secondary. Like we should be doing the same things, right? And it's an interesting shift in our industry where at some point, call it third, call it fourth, call it fifth, we shift to content. And we just don't have these conversations at the secondary level. And we need to talk about modeling. We need to talk about routine and what that does for a big young person, you know? I think it's an interesting difference.
I wonder if we could do a show, maybe the next show, on things that don't work and then what to do instead. So like to Kim's point, giving a bunch of directions to young people and them not being able to follow it and then us being frustrated versus what then she described to do. I would say in the chaotic classroom she had before, I've always liked, when I was assistant superintendent, we did these rounds where we went in every school in the district 4 times a year. So I got to go K-5, even though I was a middle and high school person for most of my career. And I always liked the teachers who didn't try to control. They reverted to like leaning into the behavior. And I would ask questions because like, I'm like, why is that kid sitting next to the teacher when all the other kids are over on the carpet? And the person who was with me, the elementary person, would say, well, if that sweetheart doesn't get a chance to sit next to the teacher and have the job of highlighting the teacher's workbook, then he's going to make a mess in this whole place. Nobody's going to learn. And I'm like, oh, how did she know that? And it's like an expert teacher, like leaning in. And then you kind of pick up all around the room that like every single kid's kind of like needs are being met all at the same time. There's a core group of like 10 who they're fine. They follow the lesson along. They do what they're told. They sit on the carpet, crisscross applesauce. But the other kids, like the master teacher, has all of those kids. I'm like, this kid's swiveling. Because like when I was a kid, like the worst thing you could tell me was to sit still. I told Kim before the show, I couldn't sit, let alone still. So maybe like another show we could say, here's some things that you probably aren't going to get a lot of bang for your buck if you tell kids to do this versus, you know what? That swivel chair might work for TJ. You know, you guys always tell me I'm not allowed to tap during the show, but I'm tapping my feet.
At least we can't hear that, buddy.
Show everybody your tap
away. So if you hear that, that's TJ.
No, I think there's that. Seeing it, having these conversations, K-12 all the way through, I think need to happen. If you're familiar with Lisa Delpit's work, Other People's Children, and the whole idea of that which is implicit needs to be explicit. I remember reading that book and just saying like there's different, and her frame is really a cultural experience. But as a 9th grade teacher, I remember one of the takeaways reading that book is it may not be enough for a young person to hear just, when you're done with the scissors, put them away.
Yeah.
This particular culture will say that. And if you were raised in that particular experience, that makes sense to you. But if you were raised in a experience where the teacher or the parent would say, hey, when you're done with the scissors, you close them and then you put them in this red box that goes in this drawer. It was like there was not one assumption made. I'm going to tell you every time. And it just, as a cultural frame, if I find myself in a different experience where there's ambiguity, I don't know what's it. And then I'm getting frustrated. Like I said, put the scissors away, put your binder away. You know what I mean? So how do we take that which is implicit and make it explicit? Because that's where we're talking about behavior, right? We start to get this. And I just think there's a lot to be learned from a master primary teacher.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you just? Why wouldn't you just? If that's a thought, why wouldn't you just put the scissors away?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you just come to class on time?
Yeah.
You're driving me nuts. Well,
why wouldn't you just have dry shoelaces?
Yeah. Stop stepping in puddles. I didn't step in a puddle, Mr. Barry. Can you tie my shoes?
I fell,
Did you just come from the bathroom?
into the retention pond at my bus stop.
All right. Well, I'm going to take that as let's wrap this up because we're at 45 minutes. Great conversation. I love this. I can't wait to dive in more. I just want to say for those who are listening, if you have a question on a previous series or maybe on the current series that we're on with student behavior, feel free in the comment section. If you're on YouTube, you can throw it in there. Spotify allows you to throw a comment also, but we'd love to get your questions and kind of curate that for a special mailbag. So we've heard that there are some topics and things that you want us to expand on. Maybe there's something that we missed. We would love to go back on previous series and actually spend an episode answering your questions. So it doesn't matter your title, doesn't matter if you're elementary, secondary, throw those questions in. We'll take all of them and one by one between series, we will do a special mailbag. So after this 4-part series, we'll do our first mailbag and whatever questions come in, we'll try and do our very best to get through those. And then we'll ask again. So this is a new concept, but we heard you. We know there's some questions and things you want us to expand on, and we would love to do that for you. So make sure you throw those in the comment section. If there's anything that we can do for you, please hit the links in the show notes. We have all of our websites there. We have a vast and variety of things that we all work on in education, supporting educators all over this community, all over this nation, really. And so make sure that you're reaching out and letting us know. And of course, it's great to see the 3 of you. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend. Make sure you're rating and review, subscribing to the podcast, and sharing out with your favorite people. And we will see you again next week.